My name is Samir Hosni, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the founder and director of the Magazine Innovation Center here at the Meek School of Journalism and New Media. Delighted on this occasion. I mean, I'm delighted to finally been able to see Greg back on campus and at the School of Journalism and being awarded the highest award that the School of Journalism have given. This is the 54th year that we have awarded a Silver M Award. And for those of you younger generation, think about the Silver M as like the 4G network. If we are going to call it something this nowadays, we'll call it like the 4G award in journalism. But from a historical point of view, there were those of us who remember the days of hot type and linotype and all the typesetting before we had computers. There were two measurements for space in the stuff that we did. One called Silver N, EN, and one Silver M. The Silver N was the small space, and the Silver M was the large space. So when this award was created back in 1958, it was called the Silver M because that was the biggest, largest award that the Department of Journalism then would give to somebody from the state of Mississippi who have excelled in journalism outside the state or inside the state. And we've been alternating, like 1 year we'll give the award to somebody in the state and one year for somebody outside the state. The only thing that was in common is that there should be a connection to Mississippi with this award because it's the highest award the school gives. Today, we're lucky we have actually 4 former recipients of this award with us, and I'm going to start with the most recent going back. Betsy Bromflet. Betsy, if you Jerry Hoare. Charles Overby. And Curtis Wilkie. And I've missed any of the Silver Award recipients who's here. I really apologize, but I doubt I get all 4 of you. I'm going to ask Dr. Hoare to come and do actually the presentation. Since Dr. Hoare was your mentor, he was the actually, when Greg graduated, was I born? I was not here. I came to Ole Miss in 1984. I've asked Dr. Hoare to come. He has something that he would like to read, and then he will have the presentation to give the award to our recipient, Gregory Brock.
Dr. Hudson, did you identify him as mentor or what was the word?
Torture?
Well, I mean, you know, Mr. Brock was one of the few who have, like, been tortured and lived to talk about it under Dr. Hoare.
Very nice. I have a herogram, he called it, from Dan Goodgame, Greg's editor when he was managing editor of the Daily Mississippian. And I'd like to read this. Greg, I regret not being with you in person, but I'm there in spirit and cheering. It's fitting that the university and your fellow journalists are honoring you. You've honored Ole Miss and all of us in this profession. Whenever I've met someone from the Times or the Observer or either of the posts where you worked and asked if they knew you, they always lit up. They praised your quiet, stubborn dedication to clarity, accuracy, and fairness, your sense of story and judgment of news value, your gift of mimicry and humor in times of stress. I would hear them and smile, remembering that's what his classmates remembered of him way back then, and 1972. My dad used to say that the best way to train a good bird dog was to hunt him alongside a great dog. I happen to disagree with that as an experienced dog trainer. But I think the same may be true of journalists, Dan said. In our class at Ole Miss, Greg, in your unassuming way, you pulled all of us up, me, Stephanie, Otis, Scott, Dennis, all of us. And you've done that over the years for journalists who've had the good fortune to work with you. So here's a long-distance toast. I look forward to raising a glass to you in person and hearing your impressions of, surely not, Dr. Hoare. Greg, we'll have to discuss this. And Jarvis the pressman. Now, Jarvis, I think, was our last superintendent of education. Is that right, Patsy? For this last election in Lafayette County, Jarvis, was he not?
His partner was the guy that.
Jarvis Bugsby?
Mike Foster, yeah. Mike, who was working with Jarvis.
And yarns about proper church ladies and backdoor casserole women competing for the latest widower, and all the other Southern ingredients you're cooking up in your novel in progress. With respect and affection, Dan.
Let me read the plaque that we are going to present to Mr. Brock. The University of Mississippi, Meek School of Journalism and New Media, the Samuel Talbert Silver M Award 2012, Gregory E. Brock, the New York Times for Outstanding Contributions to Journalism, presented in Oxford, Mississippi, October 11, 2012. Mr. Brock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Quite an honor.
It's a pleasure.
It's very nice. What is yours?
Thank you, Dr. Hoare. I didn't know he was going to be presenting it, but that's okay. I have a little stuff prepared on you too. So. Yes, exactly. When Will Norton called me to tell me about this, of course I was surprised, honored, flattered. I still contend that you've got a list of the winners on your table, if you look on the back of the program, that I should become an answer to a future test, which is list Jerry Hoare, Curtis Wilkie, Harding Carter, William Raspberry, Mr. Overby, Patsy, on and on and on. Put my name there and then ask the students which name doesn't belong with this list. Because I have to be the most anonymous recipient of this. I've spent 38 years trying to fly under the radar. I found early on, if you sort of don't care who gets the credit, and go about your business, I guess as Dan was saying, you can get a lot more done. So anyway, I asked Dean Norton, so what do I do? And he said, well, just fly down from New York and have lunch with us, give you the award, and make a few brief remarks. So I thought, well, I can do that, I guess. And about a minute later, I got an email from Ed Meek congratulating me. And in the email said, you know, Greg, all those years ago at Ole Miss, who would have thunk it? I said, indeed. So I thought, well, that says it all. So I can just say that and say thank you and sit down. Who would have thunk it? But that would cheat me out of the chance to thank quite a number of people. First, Charlie Mitchell for just guiding this and putting together. It looks so easy, it'll go so quickly, and it's very difficult to do in committee. Samir for bringing me back several years ago. I worked on the advisory board with him, and that really kind of drew me back in. Of course, Will Norton, who came here when I was a senior, but I keep looking at Will and looking myself in the mirror and looking at Will thinking, didn't we leave here? So you're back. We're like the bad pennies that just keep turning up. And, we just start thanking people. I'm going to leave someone out. I'll kick myself later. But certainly the faculty, every time I have come back here through the years, there are more and more of you. I finally got to meet the famous Curtis Wilkie after many decades of not knowing him. And so thank you for all the fact that you keep building this program. It's just remarkable what's going on. And Otis Timms, another mentor. Otis took me under his wing when I came here and was stumbling around the journalism department. And I don't think anybody would argue with me that Otis is probably, back in those days, he was the most brilliant editor of the Daily Mississippian. So having him as my mentor was quite a compliment. Now, one thing I will tell you about Otis, since I said he's brilliant, and you go Google him when we're through, and say, what's this guy's real story? Well, he was brilliant, but he couldn't meet a deadline. That's right. So we just put out the paper, and we still had a brilliant editor. So, and then I certainly have to thank Jerry Hoare. 40 years ago, this August, just a few weeks ago, I arrived at Ole Miss, Crystal Springs, Mississippi, green, scared to death, unworldly, you name it, I was it. I was the first in my family to go to college, and while my folks were all for me, obviously, and supportive, they had not been to college, so they didn't really have a lot to offer in the way of guidance and help. And financial help, too. So I walked into the foyer of Brady Hall, and Dr. Sam had passed away that previous year sometime, and I'm sorry I didn't know him, but it's nice to have his name on this. And Dr. Hoare had slipped in to kind of run the program, and so I kind of eased into his office, and so he's sort of the faculty advisor. We had like 5 faculty, And he looked at my schedule and my classes, and told me a little bit about the program and what to expect. And so you set me on my way 40 years ago, the first person I knew in journalism here. What I didn't realize on that class schedule was that the day was going to come when I had Dr. Hoare for 3 classes. And if you don't know this by now, you've been under a rock, but Dr. Hoare, Jerry, had extremely high expectations of his students and exacting standards, very high. And I know of at least one person who never quite measured up to those standards, but those B's I got were just beautiful, I think. So it's a double irony that I would end up A, at the New York Times, and B, with the word standards in my title, senior editor for standards. And then I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I'm so flattered so many of you young people are here. Maybe it's mandatory attendance, I don't know. But I'm glad to have a captive audience because I get to give my little brief sermon on standards. Because it's really, if you think about this award, that's sort of what it's about. We're looking back at my career, obviously. But you're the next generation. They're going to be looking for a recipient in 20 years, 30 years, we hope. And I'm sure some of you in here will rise to the occasion. But it's not too early to start setting your own standards, raising the bar and meeting it. Because my generation, our big mission was to uphold, protect, defend a free press and its role in democracy. Obviously, you'll have to do that too. But based on what's going on in the industry now, it seems like that you're going to have to take a couple of steps back, and you're going to have to promote and protect an accurate press. Because of what's going on in the blogosphere and the industry, I'm surprised every single day, and I shouldn't be by now, of just the stuff that's thrown out there. And people believe it. New York Times readers are mostly pretty smart. And they will bite on things that are said about the Times or we published, which we didn't publish. So we're constantly having to deal with that, and it's going to be pervasive in your careers, I'm quite sure. So yesterday, the students, there's always one who asks, well, Mr. Brock, sir, what exactly is it that you do at the New York Times? Senior editor for Standards sounds interesting. And I said, well, the bottom line is I try all day long to keep the New York Times from screwing up. And when I don't succeed, and we do, then it lands on my desk the next day or on my head. Could be dealing with anything. Anonymous sources. I have a boss. We all have bosses at the Times, layers of editors. And we might discuss the use of some anonymous source, whether we're going to do it. We actually have higher standards now than we used to. Could be language. Some official has used some vulgar word. Are we going to put that word in our family newspaper? Usually I end up on the short end of that stick, and the Times does what it always does, is to tell you that the official used a vulgar word, but not tell you what the vulgar word was. So I tend to be a little more liberal on that front. Photographs, some gory picture from war. Do you use it? Do you report the news? You take into account the squeamish readers. And the website, that's probably I spend more of my time now on that than anything. Videos that might be graphic in nature or something. Are we going to post it on the New York Times website? Are we going to link to it? Or are we just going to tell readers it exists and they can Google that and find out? So that's just a little bit of assortment of things that I do. But us Mississippians, if they would let us at these places, and you'll be able to too, we can make quite a contribution. If I had time to read everything in the Times that was going in every day, which of course no one has a chance to. One little thing I kind of oversee that goes across my desk are the corrections in the New York Times, which a little more interesting than you might think. A couple of weeks ago, we reviewed a movie called Butter. It's set in Iowa, and it's about sculpting with butter. I don't know why anybody would make a movie about that. And I definitely don't know why the New York Times would review it, except maybe it had Hugh Jackman in it. So, at any rate, the reviewer had used the word butter and sculpting and sculptures 50 times in the review. So she was trying to find another way to say that. So bless her heart, she referred to these as lard concoctions. I wish I'd seen it before it went in, because quite a few readers wrote to say, you Yankees, you idiots, don't you know there's a difference between lard and butter? So I did, and we actually published a correction on that. Then a few weeks ago, our esteemed New York Times Sunday magazine published a photograph of these two people, and the caption said that they were standing next to a giant bull. Well, it was actually a cow. So, albeit a very well-fed cow, I'll admit. So we published, the head of research of the magazine called me. She said, I guess we have to correct this, don't we? And I said, yeah, I guess we do. So now that you kids are probably thinking, oh, so that's what he does. Well, that's pitiful. That's what your, that's what your career has come to. But that brings me back to my sermon, which is the Times takes accuracy well, it's our foundation, it's our credibility. And readers and now media bloggers watch us like hawks. And so we've had this decades-long commitment to, you know, we have to correct lard, we correct lard. And we are housed, come to New York and see us in a big skyscraper, it costs almost $1 billion. And it's really meaningless if we don't have the credibility with readers. We're sort of nothing. So I would say to you students, as I said, start setting your standards now, meeting them, raising the bar. I can assure you there are no Jerry whores out there to do it for you. And that's really, I think, the main thing I wanted to tell you today. I can't tell you what the future holds, what your career will be, but I have a feeling that certainly some of the students I've met already, you'll be standing here one day as a recipient of this. And the one thing I can tell you, it will be just one of the highlights of your career.